And welcome back. Welcome in once again to another episode of the Spin Cycle. This for Tuesday, August 25th. Andrew Southwick, R.C. Williams, and Juliana Armand with you on this episode. And we've got, you know what? Well, first we should say right now, the news has already broke. It broke just a few minutes before we came on air. Of course, the Queen of Country, undisputed Queen of Country, Dolly Parton, passing away at the age of 80. And while toward the end of her life, perhaps, I know you can always go back over and say, well, I like this, I like that about her, but no doubt about it, was she among the most influential artists of certainly the 20th century and over an entire genre, crossing genres of music into popular and even into folk and rock in her era. Of course, Dollywood and many movies. Of course, I always think of her, well, in a couple, 9 to 5 is probably the one everybody talks about.
Mhm.
But I always remember her in Steel Magnolias. And yes, I watched that movie and I enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say so. So, really just a profound effect on an entire nation. And so certainly all the tributes are pouring out and pouring in for Dolly Parton. But just, since that just came out, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention a little bit about that. Uh, do either of you connect Dolly Parton to a particular moment in maybe your life or your history, or, whether it was Jolene or whether it's Islands in the Stream or 9 to 5 or anything like that?
So for me, she really inspired me when I was a kid. When I was about 11 years old, I told my dad I wanted a synthesizer, and specifically so I could play the 9 to 5 song and play along with my synthesizer. So yeah, she was very instrumental in my wanting to do music,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely legendary, Andrew. Politics aside, we talked about that before we came on. Dolly Parton changed a lot, in particular for women in the entertainment industry, and really kind of spearheading entrepreneurship in her own special way with Dollywood. I think a lot of people were of the mind that I don't know that Dolly Parton's ever going to pass away. She's just been around for so long that she's just going to be here.
Yeah.
I think was the general feeling. So it was a bit of a shock to see that happen. But musically, business wise, what a legend.
Yeah, and hopefully, I do hope. I know it's probably gonna in some sectors of the world, certainly probably in internet sphere, but hopefully it doesn't get to just about politics and what they thought of what one person thought, because I think one thing that is hurting America now, it's hurting our freedom, is the fact that the shared experience is diminishing, if not almost gone for America. We don't have those national and cultural social touchstones that we all, the water cooler moments. We don't share those. Our lives are so customizable, and then not only that, but we're encouraged by the powers that be to be angry at whoever doesn't have our life and see it the way we do.
Hmm.
We have to draw a line, and then everybody else is an enemy, that we lose those
It's
shared
crazy.
moments. I mean,
Yeah.
when I could mention Island in the Stream and 9 to 5 to you, and you would understand what I'm talking about, but not to current generations. And really, what of this generation? And I don't mean the generation in terms of the people, but this era. What is shared like that anymore along
Hmm.
those lines? Very, very little. And I think that's one of the things that's hurting us, because it also hurts our discourse in the public and the civic sphere, because we have forgotten how to have conversations like normal people who may or may not disagree but can still enjoy the game together, and that's too bad.
Mhm.
And I would hope, and Dolly Parton, and really that era. I mean, I was just talking about this the other day to my kids. It's not like Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr are buying green bananas right now. You know, they're in their 80s when they, when their time on Earth is through. I mean, that's the closing of the door, the end of an era. The Rolling
Yeah.
Stones are out there doing their cool concerts, but good on them. I mean, fantastic, the greatest rock band in the world in terms of their touring and longevity, that they can still do that again in their early 80s, and some of them mid 80s. Hats off to them, but we don't have 20 more years of that. And
No.
but those icons were some of the, and are right now, some of the last remaining physical touch points that connect us to that era where we did have something we could share. And I think we're going to find that we're going to miss that a lot more than we think.
Mhm.
Whether or not you like the Beatles or the Stones or Dolly Parton or any of that stuff. And you can say, well, pop culture is entertainment and it's dumb. Actually, I think one of the reasons why it's valued so much in our culture in a good way is because of the value of the shared experience. And, so anyway. All right, didn't mean to talk about that, but since we did, there we go. I'll shut up and get off my soapbox. Welcome to everybody checking us out. If you are watching us, wherever you are, please like, share, and subscribe, particularly on the channel, whatever channel you're on, whether it's a follow or a subscribe, please do that. Lets that site know, lets that platform know that you want this content. It helps the platform get this content to more and more people. RC, let them know where they can find us in all of our other endeavors and internet sphere activities.
Yes, sir. They can find us at watchmanaction.org. All things Watchman Action. That's MEN, so it's plural, watchmanaction.org. Looking for Watchman Action on the socials? Lucky for you. The handle's all the same across the board. Just search for Watchman Action. You can also watch The Spin Cycle weeknights at 9:30 Eastern on the big and bold Watchman Action Network. That's Channel 40 on Bet Cable in North Dakota and streaming everywhere you might expect, including on the Watchman Action site. Now for all things Andrew Southwick on YouTube, Culture Crossroads 316. You get The Spin Cycle, you get Culture Crossroads, you get his incredible monologues. And with all of these things, as he said, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because that lets people know that we're around.
All right. Now let's get to the first story. This story I did not include, and I already let you know about this. I didn't include this in the rundown I sent out earlier, but it just came across, and I was like, no, we have to hit this because it does matter. And it's the question that we've titled the episode, is the GOP giving up on the 2026 midterms? I want to play you a clip from Jesse Kelly and his X account. And he had a conversation with Sean Spicer. And I'm not sure the conversation was ended with him. They all lived happily ever after.
Are we already giving up on November? And I asked that for this specific reason, because I had a long conversation today with, I'll just tell you who, Sean Spicer. You know what Sean Spicer told me? Sean Spicer told me the GOP is sitting on a gargantuan amount of money, a gigantic amount of money. We are 70, 71 days, something like that, away from the election, and they're not spending it. I told you my story about here in Texas. You know what Sean Spicer told me? Yeah, Jesse, same thing's happening in Michigan. Same thing's happening in North Carolina. Same thing's happening in Georgia. The GOP is sitting on truckloads of cash, and they're not spending it. People are starting to vote early, like now. If not now, it can't. Every state does it differently, but I guarantee it's starting very soon. This election is right now. Why are we not unloading all this money? What are we saving the money for? Are we saving it for 2028? What has happened? This is malpractice. And I'm not saying we're going to lose the Texas Senate seat, but we might. I'll tell you this. You know what Sean Spicer told me? It's a 1-point race right now. 1 point in one of the reddest states in the country. And why wouldn't it be 1 point? Bottom is on every single TV commercial, driving a Ford truck, talking about groceries and Jesus with Pawpaw. And Ken Paxton is nowhere to be found because the GOP's not spending any money. And I'm told that that same thing is happening in Georgia, that John Ossoff is unloading money. He's all over the airwaves. GOP candidate non-existent. North Carolina non-existent. Michigan non-existent. And now I get a story that Jared Kushner is already meeting with the probable, I guess, next Speaker of the House on areas of common ground. Are we in the negotiating the surrender phase? I mean, you're going to have to forgive me, but how am I supposed to take this any other way? Why in... I'm going to be calm here. Why in the world would we be meeting with Hakeem Jeffries 2 months before the election? Hopefully, Hakeem Jeffries is still in the minority after the election. I would hope that'd be the goal. But of course, surprise, surprise, Who's the one going to sit down with Hakeem Jeffries? Jared Kushner.
Okay. So is the GOP giving up on the 2026 midterms? And, one of the questions that I have asked, and I've also lamented, the Democrats, they were always good at spending their political capital for gains that went their way. I mean, Obamacare is the biggest example in recent years where they knew they were going to lose in the midterms. They did it anyway. That's what they wanted. The GOP never acts like that, but now I'm thinking maybe they do. Because maybe the GOP, the globalist corporatists that have bought them out, maybe all these high prices, all these high energy prices, high food prices, the cattle shortages, the squeeze on the middle class, which I've got a story about that coming up on the Sunday show. But maybe all that is what they want. And they're spending the capital. And RC, you have mentioned, because we've talked about it before, months before this, by the way. So again, if you haven't watched Culture Crossroads, you should, because oftentimes you're going to be ahead of the curve, and usually months before it starts hitting the conservative mainstream or the conservative alternative media, if you will, that the GOP had baked a midterm loss into the 2026 cake. Perhaps again, our prescience is, while understated, perhaps maybe vitally important.
Yeah. So, something I used to make fun of the Seahawks for, Andrew, and now I make fun of the 49ers for, is that lay down and die defense. This is, unfortunately, I had to use the analogy, but it's true, right? So tomorrow's news, like 6 months ago, we talked about the fact that there are many in power in the GOP that are baking in the losses for whatever strategic reasons. And I think we're seeing some of that leak out. Are they giving up? Hard to tell. But if you're going to spend the money, I think Jesse Kelly was spot on there. If you're going to spend that war chest, you need to unload now, because the other side's going to unload. I don't think that the GOP has it in them to run a rope-a-dope like Ali and to let the other side punch itself out. I just don't think that they're built that way. But it sounds like, for whatever reason, they may be ready and willing to give some things up, and are kind of banking on that and just trying to get through the last 2 years. It's sad to see, Andrew, because they've got so many people in the tank, and so many people have gotten behind people and the party and said, look, we're going to go in, we're going to win this thing, we're going to get people elected, even if we don't necessarily agree with them. They've got an R behind their name. We just got to do it. Even that seems like it's a lie. Like, when does it stop? Does it stop at, we changed the party platform on abortion back in 2024 and we tried to pull a fast one on you? Or we're just basically going to lie to you to get elected and then just run the globalist playbook? Or does it stop now with them saying, hey, we're just going to kayfabe and we're going to take a dive in the midterms? Or does it get even worse? And as we've already said, is 2028 already calculated as a loss of the White House so that they have a punching bag to work off of? This is silly.
In Central Florida, 5-6 years ago, we had 10 seats that had no representation, no Republicans going into that seat, fighting for that seat. Literally, Democrats just just taking the seats, and we were doing nothing. And then we had candidates that we were helping, and the GOP was nowhere to be found. They weren't supporting these candidates. Why was it that they were not? What was going on in Central Florida? What was going on in Orange County that they didn't want to spend the money to help us with the candidates? I mean, like, seriously? This is so aggravating. That's our money, and they're letting us. I mean, you have to sit back and go, this is intentional. This is so intentional. I mean, come on, follow the money. What are you going to do with the money afterwards? Are they going to pocket the money? Your special interest stuff? Are they just going to line each other's pockets with it? I mean, it's just, so aggravating.
Well, today, South Carolina Republicans have a Senate runoff for the appointed Senator Darlene Graham, sister of the late Lindsey Graham, and a runoff between Representative Ralph Norman for that Senate seat. Notice reports that Graham could be in danger despite President Trump's endorsement, despite Governor Henry McMaster's backing, and significant outside spending, not to mention the name ID of Lindsey Graham. Of course, remember that Trump came out right away and endorsed Darlene Graham. And clearly, I don't think that she was fully vetted. It was just name only. Here's a clip of Darlene Graham, and this is the person that President Trump thinks would be the best to represent South Carolina in the Senate.
Last week, I've gone around this entire state talking to as many people as I possibly can. And you know how many of them brought up Taiwan or national security? Not one. They're talking about the rising cost of health care and affordability. So that's what's important to me.
Notably, though, Reed, when I asked her later if there was some kind of legislation or specific proposal that she would put forth to deal with the concerns about affordability, she wouldn't give us an answer and only said, we'll see about that when I get there. Thing is,
we'll see about that when I get there. You can know what's in the bill when you get elected. She clearly has no clue what to do in the Senate. Now, there is some new polling that came out today that says that she is in danger, and I believe that was part of that notice polling. And in fact, Trafalgar, who's been accurate in the past couple of election cycles, Trafalgar released a poll showing that Graham and Norman were tied 48-48 within the margin of error. So right now, as of right now, the voting is still ongoing. Polls have not closed in South Carolina, so we do not have those results right now. But I bring that up to say this is where the GOP money is going. These are the kinds of candidates that President Trump is putting his name behind. This is the future of the Republican Party if you leave it to the current establishment, if you leave it to the current administration. So you know, Juliana, you're saying we don't have representatives, where's the money? It's going to candidates like Darlene Graham for reasons I don't think anybody knows.
That is so wrong. That is our money, and we should be able to bring it to the candidates that we need to have in, and they shouldn't be able to control the purse strings to the point where it hurts the people. Like, we don't have a voice anymore. They're using a system totally against our ability to be able to have our voices heard.
Juliana's got it, Andrew. And if I can speak frankly, we're all friends here, including the people watching. When it comes to the party apparatus, somebody needs to take this thing out back and shoot it.
Yeah.
Just go out and shoot this thing. Like, just nuke it, shoot it, whatever, and let's just start over. I mean, this insanity, I know there's too much money in it, and that's not going to happen, but that's it. This shows you, right? And part of this too, I mean,
I think it's primarily
we deal with a lot of the psychology of this, right? There is a part of this that is so insane and so stupid. It is actually designed to get you so angry and agitated that you give up, right? And it's like sometimes people forget that, but it's like literally this is just another reminder that we need to take this thing out and shoot it. It's long past its expiration date here, and it's now just showing itself. And I mean, not that the Senate does a ton. I mean, it's the upper chamber where people go and they're knighted or rewarded, and they get to spend their time putzing around. But I mean, geez, like, do we almost just put like a gigantic gate around DC and just not let them out? Like, you guys can just play in your little fiefdom, but leave the rest of us alone.
I already said we need to make our national capital Alcatraz, and just send them all there, and we'll drop them off on. We'll take a nice big ferry. They can all go over there. That'll be a lot of fun, and then we'll just leave. And we'll be fine. And we'll give them like pretend money, like that we can buy. Like, well, it used to be in Toys R Us, and we'll give them a Xerox machine, so they'll feel right at home. They can make copies of those dollars, and they can hand them out to their friends. It'd be great. And every now and then we'll send them a shipment of water and vitamin supplements, and they'll be fine.
We'll just have our grandson. We'll just have our grandson Aiden wave at him. See you later.
Yeah, exactly.
See you later.
Exactly. And we'll geoengineer the skies right above it. All that kind of stuff. It'll be great. Have you guys ever heard of the term stochastic terrorism?
No, this is going to be interesting.
It
Go
will be
ahead and
interesting.
explain it.
Okay, so stochastic, that word means, and forgive me, I'm not looking at the camera here. I got my notes are in a different spot. Stochastic means probabilistic, random, or statistically describable rather than individually predictable. The term originally appeared in a terrorism risk modeling scenario where mathematician and risk analyst Gordon Wu used the term stochastic terrorism in the early 2000s to describe the probabilistic nature of terrorist events and the relationship between terrorism and mass communication. So the idea is, this is where we're starting to get the idea of, you have said something that may possibly someday might kind of be sort of connected to a violent thing that will happen, particularly a political violence. We've seen the left use this. We're starting to see the right use this. And this is, I believe, a part of a broader push to normalize and, in fact, even require censorship of speech, particularly on platforms that are for free speech and for free speech absolute. I want to play you this clip here. This is former, I want to make sure I got his name right here, former FBI agent John Nance. And he is arguing, and this is a recent interview, saying that if people say the phrase, quote, "you can't vote your way out of this," unquote, that those who say that phrase, that's a red flag, and they should be investigated, they should be monitored, because they are stochastic terrorists. And they're engaging in or potentially contributing to stochastic terrorism, and again, should be investigated or monitored. It's kind of a lengthy clip, but listen to this. This will bake your biscuits here.
I think it's primarily on X. I mean, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram too, LinkedIn also, but from my perspective, I think it's primarily on X where I really see that information.
Make a boogeyman, make a bad guy.
Type stuff happening. So I think the Bureau is trying to do that. Now, are you asking me?
Now I'm going to stop. What is primarily on X now? X, yes, has a lot of people spouting their opinions, and as we post things as well, we do have commentary based on news from ours. So we're not exempt of that, and I'm not saying that we're above or below that. But why X? What's different? X, was Twitter, was the left's hangout, but now it has become more free speech to a lot of people on the right, and in fact, the dissident right. Now, when I say the dissident right, I don't mean the far right. I'm using that term probably differently than the mainstream would. Particularly people on the right, or people who are conservative, who are dissatisfied with President Trump 2.0. You're seeing a lot of them have a voice on X. So it is interesting that we're going to point out X. Of all the places, why not YouTube, which we know engages in censorship, because if you say something against the WHO, right, then you have to, you go through a little censorship thing and a re-education program of their own. Or Facebook that will shadow ban, and I'm sure X shadow bans as well, they all do it. But interesting that he pointed out X. All right, let's continue.
Do I think there are open investigations on individuals or whatever? I would hope so. I would hope so for particular individuals, but those would be very sensitive cases, what are termed SIM cases, sensitive investigative matter. That's not exactly a classification. It's kind of a handling instructions. So those things are kept very, very close hold. So I think there are people out there that are actually seditious. And I've used this phrase before. If you hear somebody say, "we can't vote our way out of this," okay, that's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is that's a technique.
Demoralization.
Yes, it's stochastic terrorism. It's a stochastic terrorism technique. And what it's designed to do is eliminate the logical objections to political violence, right? I mean, what's being left unsaid? If
Remember, stochastic means it's probable, or they believe it's probable. Stochastic means there is a certain mathematical formula we could use to statistically predict that this might impact or influence or insight or whatever. It doesn't mean one-to-one, and it doesn't mean this, correlation is causation, or that there is any relation whatsoever.
If you say we can't vote our way out of this, what's the alternative, right? It's political violence. Well, the individuals that are involved in that are seditious. And frankly, I mean, if I was running the Bureau's counterintelligence program, I'd be real interested in what those people were doing in their association. I'd love to see a link chart.
I would too.
On
Brought this up.
He'd love to see that data we showed yesterday on the spin cycle from Flock and their cameras and all that, all your data points. He'd love to see that.
That's one of the things, that I miss about being, in the bureau. The bureau is really good at that stuff. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but a link chart with regard to some of these people would be fascinating to see. So
it sure would be fascinating to see, wouldn't it? Boy, if we could just have all the information about everybody who's ever said anything bad about the government that we didn't like. Gee, I wish we could implement a system and an infrastructure to do that. Oh, wait a minute. We are. Now we need to get the public convinced that we should use it and weaponize it, because, gosh darn it, there are people that are not bending the knee at the Orange Man. There are people who don't think, there are people who don't believe that the 10,678,458 9/10 to the point carry the rounding remainder degree chess. There are people who don't quite think that maybe that's the best thing for America. Can you believe people would actually think for themselves? That when we send out the note from on high, the edict from on high, conservatives, this is what we believe, that, wait a minute, some of them don't? Well, we can't have that. The constitutional problems here, okay? For speech, right? For it to be a true threat, it needs to be a serious expression conveying unlawful violence against an identifiable person or group. If it's going to be an incitement, it needs to be an advocate who is intending to produce imminent lawless action. So you're there in a mob with a bullhorn telling them to go. That's incitement. Conspiracy, an agreement among participants to commit an unlawful act. Oh, wait a minute. Are there some people in D.C. that might be guilty of that? Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe it's the same people that are making sure that they're covering their tracks by not having to answer to the IRS for their finances or for their pardons that they're getting, that are blanket pardons that cover backwards and forwards. You mean people like that? Oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. That was out loud. Never mind. Or political despair, hyperbole, radical criticism of government. These things are protected unless they cross one of those established legal lines. Counterman versus Colorado, the Supreme Court emphasized the danger of chilling protected expression when criminal threat standards are too broad. And the problem with stochastic terrorism, that phrase, is it's way too broad, way too elastic. It can mean anything, but that's exactly what they want, because they just want something that they can go back and look at our X accounts and look at our YouTube accounts and look at our Facebook accounts or watch our programs or look at our clips, and they can say, oh, you know what? There is a world where I can make a formulation where what they just said, that could bring violence, and it could bring political violence. So we're going to open an investigation, and we're going to monitor you. And, golly gee, we have the infrastructure to do it now. And I think the central question is this: if there is no specific threat, if there's no plot, if there's no instruction, and clearly if there's no violent act, what exactly is the government investigating other than trying to intimidate people not to have their own opinions and not to express them?
I just want to say, a lot of the people that are on X, they're believers. They're Kingdom First people. They're the ones that are saying, Trump no longer, or the Republican Party no longer represents us. So if the Republican Party doesn't represent us, right? Because he said, where else are you guys going to go? Well, you know what? There is someplace else that we can go, and we, the people, can come together. That does not mean violence. It just means that, we're looking at a government that does not represent us anymore. Obviously, we're America first. So what are we, the people, right? Because we are the first line of government. They are not. We are the first line of government. If these people who are supposed to be representing us are not representing us correctly, then what are we, the people, going to do about it? And for them to turn around and say that they're going to stifle what we're going to say and they're going to come against my First Amendment, no, I don't think so. That's not how this works.
Friends, if I can just take a moment here, put on the handy spectacles, I'm going to look at the other screen on the big board and read the definition of sedition. Just a moment, please, because this is important. Sedition is overt conduct, such as speech or organization, that tends towards rebellion against the established order. Hang on to that for a second. Sedition often includes subversion of a constitution and incitement of discontent towards or insurrection against established authority. Also hang on to that. Sedition may include any commotion, though not aimed at direct and open violence against the laws. Seditious words in writing are seditious libel. A seditionist is one who engages or promotes sedition. Friends, I submit to you, and Mr. Nance, this one's for you, buddy, so I'll look at the camera. I would submit, sir, that you and the FBI and other three-letter agencies are in essence the seditionists, not the
That's
American
correct.
people, because you are waging an assault on the Constitution in and of itself because you've in some weird way been given permission. I want people to let that sink in for a second. Because before you point it at us, which you're going to try to do anyway, because it's pre-crime, we talked about this yesterday on the show. The movie Minority Report was not science fiction. It was science fact. It was just a matter of when we were going to get there. Be very careful, speaking of words and what they mean and how they try to pull them together against you. Be very careful to listen to and watch what these people say and do. And what you will quickly find is that definition is gentlemen like Mr. Nance and those three-letter agencies that purport to protect you. Now, if that's sedition on my side, you guys know where to find me, but I'll tell you what, it ain't.
You know,
Well,
it's
so
so interesting because we thought we were seeing this on the left, and people were like, oh, we're not going to see that on the right. And here we are. We're seeing it on our side. Go ahead,
Well,
Andrew.
and so here's why they have to do this, because now we figured out that it's a uniparty. That it doesn't. That's why no matter who you vote for, you get backstabbed, and it all moves in the same direction. If you're a liberal and you really do honestly care about the social causes and that kind of thing, and those are your issues, well, the poor aren't getting richer, are they? For all the money we throw at them, for all the programs we have, education has never been worse in America, and we've never spent more money on it. So all those things, healthcare has not gotten more affordable, has it? No, because the people who claim to solve our problems have no incentive to do so, because if the problem were solved, we wouldn't need them. And they need to be the ones in charge so that they can do the grift and keep grifting. And the same is true on the conservative side. If we thought, well, gee, we do want businesses to be able to operate and function, but honestly, now we're seeing that, well, the Republicans just got in bed with businesses and they're turning the DC into a corporate investment machine. And we're the public-private partnership has now been set up to where the things that the government cannot do constitutionally, they can lean on the corporations and the favored companies who will carry out their policies on you and me, and they can get around the Constitution that way. And to say that you can't vote your way out of this is equal to go commit a crime or go be violent is reckless on its face. Because listen, if we have looked at our choices and we keep seeing cycle after cycle, election after election, that no matter who we vote for, the same things happen, then it is true that our voting is not accomplishing what it is supposed to. But when we say that your vote is not accomplishing that, or when we say that DC is lost and it's not going to be fixed from the inside, when we say that, what we're saying is, listen, so that means that's why you got to get local. That's why you need to, for example, buy your meat from the local processor. Find one, even if they're an hour away. It's worth it, believe me. As much produce as you can from your local farmers market, as much commerce as you can in your community and with your neighbors. The local doctor that might still exist in the area, not the chain clinic. As much as you can, as wherever it's possible. That's where it is. It's us, we the people, applying our constitutional rights, applying those rights guaranteed to us through the Bill of Rights that the government is supposed to protect, not subvert like we're seeing. Applying those things is what we're talking about, because the only way now to stop this madness is to not play the game, because the game is madness.
This is scary. I mean, we have to look at what's going on for what it really is, not for what they want us to think that's happening, but for what we actually see. And then we, the people, coming together, like you said, Andrew, right? Going back into community. Like, I can tell you that I'm from Brooklyn, right? On 7th Avenue, where all the little markets, the fish market, the meat market, the bodega, the veggie market. And I would go down with my cart and I would go and do my grocery shopping and then go back home. And then all of a sudden, this big chain called Pathmark came in, and all those mom and pop shops closed up. right? Because they couldn't compete with Pathmark. And then I had all these different types of bookstores, and Barnes and Nobles came in, and before they were even open, all those bookstores then had to close. And all the mom and pop shops on the 7th Avenue were all now struggling or closed because they let in all these big organizations to be able to come in and steal that away. We need to go back to, like you said, buying from our neighbors, the local meat market, the local fish place, the local. If your friend has chickens, buy his eggs, okay? If your friend has cows, buy their meat, buy their milk. That's what we need to do. If we all come off the system and we all start building our own system inside of our communities, we'll no longer need it to rely on the Walmarts or the Publix or the Winn-Dixies of the world. We can rely on one another, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Amen.
And it's not that Walmarts and Publix are bad in and of themselves, but when
No.
we end up relying on them, it becomes, it becomes that trap, that bottleneck funnel where now there's nowhere to turn. The government would like us there because they want us all dependent on them and how they will distribute whatever it is they think we need for our lives. That's why you have the open air prisons, 15-minute cities being developed. You'll own nothing and like it all this. People say we're at the brink of World War III. I submit to you that World War III is already happening. And it's a
Correct.
global war against the middle class. It's being
Correct.
waged in the financial sectors, in the biomedical sphere, in the educational sphere, institutionally, upon us to squeeze us so that there is no more middle class. Because as long as there is a middle class, and that middle class is essential to freedom, because as long as there are people who can earn and grow and they can rise up in terms of that socially, financially, what have you, the powers that be can't gatekeep their little community as well. They can't control us all. They've got to get us to that binary Marxist communist, the haves and the have-nots, and those who rail against the oppressors, they're the ones who want to do the oppressing. It's just right now the middle class is in their way. That's why they don't care that gas prices are high. They don't care. They don't care that food prices are high. That's good. The fact that you're having a harder time paying your mortgage and paying your electric bill, that's progress to them. That's Agenda 2030. That's Agenda 2050. But if we act like who we can be and say, you know what, we don't need you, nor not only do we not need you, we don't need your permission. Now we can take our country back, and that's how it's going to be. That's what it is. Now there are some people, obviously, we care about voting, we care about our civic duty. We always are going to encourage you to vote for the best person that you can in your area for the different races, both local, state, and federal, all the above. But we can't count on that to be our savior. Where there's only one savior, that is Jesus, and then two, where we can't count on the government to live out our own rights for us. That's for us to do. And if we keep trading our rights for convenience and security, we're going to find out that, just like Franklin said, we're not going to have either one.
Andrew, this is called an asymmetrical warfare. This is when the government is warring against the people. They want us to think that, there's a war in the Middle East going on and stuff like that. No, we the people need to understand that this is an asymmetrical warfare, and it's going on in our country, in England, France, all over. I mean, every country seems to be experiencing this situation. Anybody that's for the globalist 2030 agenda, we the people are feeling it. And that's why we always say it's not the people, it's the governments that we don't like. It's the governments that we need to push back on, because this is war and this is what it looks like.
So Andrew,
let me give you one tip. RC, hold your thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to give our viewers one tip. Thank you for viewing, whether you like us or hate us. That's great. I mean, I think it's fantastic. And if you're going to call me names, I think that's awesome. And I think, obviously name calling and insults are the best way to get your ideas across and the best way to communicate those. Hands down, that's the best way to do it. But if you're going to call somebody a moron, can you please spell moron correctly?
I was just about to say, did you realize that you're a moron? I didn't know if you realized that or not.
Who's calling the moron?
Because I was talking and he's excited about that. I appreciate that, but just, hey man, check that spelling, because I want it to reflect well on you, my friend. This way that everybody knows what a moron I truly am. All right. We are way over budget, and way over budget. Anyway, and we didn't even get to, once again, $40 trillion in debt. We keep trying to get there, and we never do. But we will this week. I promise you, we got some details on that and on It's oh, it's what? Okay. Never mind. I'm reading the comments and they are spelled interestingly. I'll tell you that. This is fun. This is like being in the bar at Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars. It's wonderful. But no, we appreciate all of you. And thank you. Again, whether you like us or hate us, we appreciate you spending some time with us. The Sunday show, Culture Crossroads, we're going to take a deep dive into the Trump's beef deal, how that's going to hurt ranchers. But also, I've got some data and some information on what is actually going in our foods right now and why it's critical that we get back to buying from ranchers and back to buying local, because what we are being what's being foisted upon us, what's in the packaging at the grocery stores, is a lot of times anything but the food we think it is. So, and I'm telling you, right down to the eggs that they put in the ingredients, it's going to blow your mind. That's coming up. That's Sunday's Culture Crossroads. I'll keep teasing that for the rest of the week. But until then, for Juliana Ormond, R.C. Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. This has been the Spin Cycle. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.